Former WDBJ7 sports anchor Chris Miles has migrated south. He's now in New Orleans at WDSU TV. He joined me on the Sports Buffet podcast on Monday. We talk Saints and we talk Hornets with Chris Miles, who made his debut talking high school football on the Sports Buffet, now talking Saints and Hornets from WDSU. Follow him on Twitter at MilesWDSU. Here he is on the Sports Buffet podcast.
For all you that miss Chris Miles in the Roanoke Valley, and I know there are tons and tons, the letters keep on coming. Travis Wells, I hear, is getting hunchback from all the letters. But anyway, he joins us here on the Sports Buffet podcast. Chris, now in the great city of New Orleans, covering the Saints, Hornets, and a lot more. And talk about the difference between New Orleans and Roanoke.
Just the difference in professional sports and covering college sports. I did get a treat, though, for the Orange Bowl when, I guess for the bowl game this year when Virginia Tech came and played Michigan down here in the beginning of January, so that was great. Seems like Virginia Tech's following me wherever I go, so that was a pretty good time.
I will bet it takes you a little bit longer to get to work now than it did with Roanoke traffic as opposed to New Orleans traffic.
No, surprisingly not.
Really?
You know, being at the time of day I go to work, it's not a lot of traffic, and also I live a little bit closer to the station, so those two things pay off.
Well, good deal. Well, let's get the pleasantries out of the way and talk some football with the New Orleans Saints. How much concern was there that Drew Brees was not going to be in camp?
I think that originally when the contract negotiations started, like for instance, I mentioned it in January after the loss of San Francisco, like, hey, and the Saints have to start working on re-signing Drew Brees. It seemed like it went from being a afterthought to a main story, so maybe a couple of days before the deal got done when Drew Brees said, hey, I'm not going to miss any days during the season, but I'll miss some of training camp. That's when we really started to think, like, there might be an issue here that may cost the team. And with Sean Payton not being around, the Saints need their leader. They need positive stories coming out of there every day. And it would be a circus the next couple of days if Drew Brees was not there. So it's a good thing that they got the deal done. It's a great thing that they got it done before training camp.
You talk about Sean Payton not going to be there, as well as a few other people with the whole, I guess they could call it Bounty Gate or whatever they're going to call it. Obviously, Sean Payton hurts. Jonathan Vilma's not easy to lose either. Talk about how the Saints are going to fill those two voids.
Well, the Saints seem to be prepared to lose Jonathan Vilma. I mean, they signed a number of linebackers, Chris Chamberlain, Curtis Lofton, to make sure that they could show up that position and be good for the future. And also, you know, Jonathan Vilma had injuries last year. He wasn't 100%. So he's also still dealing with those knee injuries now. So even if he wasn't suspended for a year, the Saints would have to be looking at other options. Curtis Lofton is a guy that just was a menacing player for the Atlanta Falcons last year, and really against the Saints caused them a lot of trouble. So they signed him up, and also they had a new defensive coordinator, Steve Spagnuolo, and he brought some of his players over, like Chris Chamberlain, to be able to kind of help out with the defense. They also loaded up on the defensive line as well through the draft and also through free agency. So they got a lot of pieces to make sure that they're prepared for this upcoming season. That was one of the things that they tried to do, and why it took so long to get the Drew Brees deal done, because they wanted to make sure that they made the rest of the team better before they could figure out how much money they could give Drew Brees. Give the general manager, Mickey Loomis, credit for just making sure that all of those pieces worked out. I mean, they know what they're doing here in New Orleans.
Now, the replacing Sean Payton thing, how's that kind of work?
And that's what's probably a lot more complicated. Joe Vick is a guy that's been replacing Sean Payton through the off-season as the interim head coach, but he's also suspended for the first 8 games of the season. So they really have a situation where, you know, it's the same group of guys that have been around for a while. So they know who the leaders are, who to listen to, but really late in the season when the playoffs come, that's really where you need a guy like Sean Payton. And I think having a veteran club, they shouldn't lose too many games because they don't have their head coach, but expect them to lose 1 or 2 or even 3 more games than they normally would, just from the sense of the day-to-day basis of the guy, you know, making sure the chemistry is correct, making sure the practice is done right.
Mark Ingram, disappointment first year or NFL rookie first year?
The Saints are not a rushing team in the sense that they give it to one guy a bunch of times. He had some electrifying plays. Mark Ingram, definitely a guy that you realize is a Heisman Trophy winner. He showed flashes of that, and of course he was hurt during the Saints playoff run. But they've got 4 running backs that they use. And really, when one guy goes down, that's when another guy really gets more playing time. So Chris Ivory was the guy that missed the first 8 games of the season. He was on injured reserve. Then it seemed like when Mark Ingram started to have injury issues, that Ivory got more snaps than Peter Thomas, also a guy that got a lot of snaps, and he's great in the screen game. And of course, Darren Sproles had an all-pro year, had over, I think, 1,500 yards from scrimmage. They really have 4 guys that they use. I think Mark Ingram is the future. I don't know about Chris Ivory and Pierre Thomas as far as what their future holds with the team, but you really get the sense that Mark Ingram is the guy that will get the majority of the carries, if not this upcoming season, the year after that.
Was Robert Meacham a big loss?
Yes and no. The thing about Robert Meacham, and that was part of shoring up the defense and making sure they had money for Drew Brees. Robert Meacham is such a good football player, he deserved more money. San Diego was willing to offer that to him, so they decided to draft 4th-round guy out of Wisconsin in Nick Toon. Nick Toon had the same size. I mean, these are big wide receivers. You know, I played basketball against Robert Meacham. I looked at him and was like, man. I mean, you're my guy, 6'3", 6'4", 220, 225 pounds of all muscle. You don't realize that because he looks slim on the field. Well, Nick Toon is built in a similar way and plays a similar style. I don't know if he has Meacham's speed, but they have enough speed in Colston and also in Lance Moore. So, Toon provides, he had 10 touchdowns last year for Wisconsin, all of those within 20 yards. He's a big target in the red zone. You got to think, now you got Colston was a big target. You have Jimmy Graham, and now Nick Toon, 3 big red zone targets. I don't know how this offense can get better, but I think they did.
Before we talk about the Hornets real quick on the NBA side, last question about the Saints. Did Jimmy Graham's emergence make a receiver expendable, if you get what I'm saying?
No, because that's a really good question. But I don't think so. I think it was just a matter of replacing a first-round draft pick with a 4th-round draft pick and making sure that, you save a few dollars. And I think that's what it was. I think that was a financial hit. I think they had to let Meacham go because he was going to command more money, as you saw with the deals that were on the table. Same thing with Tracy Porter. They ended up playing for the Denver Broncos. I mean, the Saints were in a situation of Jimmy Graham only makes $500,000 a year. That's not going to last very long.
Right.
The Saints have to have some casualties to make other players available. But no, I don't think just because of Jimmy Graham's emergence that they thought Meacham was expendable.
I laugh anytime somebody says only 500,000.
Well, yeah, when you're talking about these football players, I mean, you got to realize now that, Drew Brees is going to make $40 million this year. So comparative, Jimmy Graham, 500,000. I think Drew Brees makes that by the start of training camp.
That's just a little more than you make, right, Chris?
Yeah, you got to put an extra 0 on it, Get to the point, right?
And the decimal point somewhere too. Let's talk about the Hornets real quick. Is the city buzzing a little bit, pardon the pun, with Anthony Davis coming to town?
Yes, they're very excited about Anthony Davis and Unibrow, especially how he's looked in the Olympics when he's gotten on the court. I don't know if you saw the game against England where he had, 5 dunks and a couple of block shots and really was impressive. I think that the fans here are getting excited about that, but right now they're just excited about Drew Brees more than anything. But definitely when the Hornets got the first pick in the draft, there was a reason for celebration.
Who do you compare Anthony Davis to? Who can he be?
I'd say, and this is not a knock, some people view this as a knock, I'd say Marcus Camby with a jump shot. What I mean is Marcus Camby started for 16 years in the NBA. He blocked shots, averaged a double-double. People don't give him enough credit. Anthony Davis is more like that, especially if you remember when Marcus Camby came out of college, he was the top overall pick and a phenomenon. People are trying to compare him to Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett. He's not as explosive offensively as Kevin Garnett. He's definitely not as fundamentally sound and a little bit more explosive than Tim Duncan. So I would say most like Marcus Camby with a jump shot and better pass do. I would say that's about right. I think he'll be a perennial All-Star.
Eric Gordon coming back, good move.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the shooting guards that were available, okay? And after Eric Gordon, it was O.J. Mayo, who, you know, I spent time in West Virginia. He's a head case. So if you're going to have a head case, make sure it's someone that can possibly be an all-star. A guy's 23 years old and is averaging about 20 to 22 points for his career, who could possibly score 25 points a game, given the green light. Definitely, you re-sign him, get the max deal, 3 or 4 years, get it out of him, and try to win some basketball games and put, you know, it's a business when you deal with it in that sense, and just try to put the water under the bridge. Definitely a good deal to bring him back.
And I think you even mentioned this on your Twitter. By the way, you can follow Chris at MilesWDSU. How much, at some point, a free agent's going to want to come to this place?
I think they have a great head coach in Monty Williams. And now when you start seeing the pick and roll game with Eric Gordon and Anthony Davis is going to be phenomenal. And also, they signed Ryan Anderson out of Orlando, who's an excellent three-point shooter. So they're going to have a better year next season than they had last year. And, you know, Eric Gordon only played 9 games. They were 6-3 when he played. So when you look at this team, it depends on, you know, if Gravis Vasquez, also a Maryland guy, ACC guy, or Austin Rivers out of Duke, also an ACC guy. It depends on how they play at the point guard position. And if Al-Farouq Aminu, also a Wake Forest guy. You got to think of those pieces, how they are able to play in the NBA, and if they can fit with the other 3 or 4 guys, really to see how this team will do. But if they perform well this year and then the year after, yeah, I can see free agents coming in. They'll have the cap space to spend because they'll have, I think, $14 million clearing up next year, and that's enough to get another max player.
Final question for you, Chris, and I hope we can do this much more in the future. A similarity we have, besides being both good-looking guys, is we both were fans and are fans of the New York Yankees. Are you any concern with this Yankees team?
No, you know, this is an aging Yankees team, and I think that we have to get young. You know, when you look at Jeter and A-Rod, and you saw what happened with Mariano Rivera, I don't have concern. I just think that we have to stop trading away our future, you know, for guys who are aging and getting older. So with this Yankee team, honestly, I don't expect them to win the World Series, and I haven't for a couple of years because I think we need to let our farm system guys develop. And all of the guys that are, you know, great legends, I mean, they were great players when, you know, 15 years ago.
Yep.
It was 15 years ago, 1996, 16 years ago, that they won a World Series together for the first time when they were young. And you still have the same group together. You got to get young, and you got to do it by growing your own players.
I'm glad to hear. Well, we agree on that too. So add another thing to the Miles and Alvis agreement list. Chris with WDSU TV, like I said, Miles WDSU on the Twitter universe, and Chris, definitely appreciate your time. Look forward to doing it again.
All right, keep me posted. Talk to you soon.